for the UN?
Absolutely. It's a threat to the absolute power of the United States.
The purpose of Donald Trump is to end the international institutions that somehow level the playing field. I mean, we are terrified. We're terrified.
It is at least half of this country versus not just a portion of this country, whether it's the radical left, versus international governing bodies who have a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D to ensure that your vote doesn't matter. We have a story for you that involves the United Nations. Okay, you know my opinion of the UN. I don't think highly of them.
No.
At best, it's pretty much useless, but it also can act as a force for evil. I know everyone likes to say, we are the world, hold hands. There can be nothing bad if we're all unified. I don't know if you look at those mosaics of all those flags and we are the world. You can probably count every third, fourth, fifth, call it 10th flag, and notice that that flag wants to exterminate all the other flags preceding it. That's the problem with the UN. Let me give you a few headlines here as examples to set this up. From The Guardian, Washington Post, UN picks Saudi Arabia to lead Women's Rights Forum, despite abysmal record. UN peacekeepers fathered, then abandoned hundreds of children in Haiti, report says. UN announces 108 new alleged sexual abuse victims in Central African Republic.
Wow. Who could have called it?
Yeah. So a lot of people have criticized the UN. And by the way, if you've criticized the UN here, if we're still on YouTube right now, you could have been removed. Or if you criticize the WHO, you could have been removed. It was a matter of policy. Here actually is one of the detractors of the UN, I believe. I'm trying to remember this next clip that we have. Okay, that's right. It's Donald Trump. He said this in 2019.
The free world must embrace its national foundations. It must not attempt to erase them or replace them. Looking around and all over this large, magnificent planet, the truth is plain to see. If you want freedom, take pride in your country. If you want democracy, hold on to your sovereignty. And if you want peace, love your nation. Wise leaders always put the good of their own people and their own country first. The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots.
And of course, Donald Trump was shunned for those comments. But is he right? What do you hear straight from the horse's mouth? That brings us to today's installation of Mug Club Undercover. So, the UN. It's the largest international organization in the world. I can say this definitively. They are terrified of Donald Trump getting elected, and they will do anything in their power to ensure that that doesn't happen. I know, that sounds quite democratic. How do I know this? How do I know it for a fact? People at the UN told us just that.
So is globalism one of the goals for the UN?
Absolutely. It's a threat to the absolute power of the United States.
One of the defining features of this MAGA movement is the ultranationalism. And one of the main enemies are what they call the globalists. And the definition of a globalist.
One of the objectives of the UN is to create an identity of a global citizen.
They create this institution, which is the closest we've ever got to kind of like a world government.
You know, the United Nations does not have its own army. Absolutely.
I'm not sure the United Nations as an institution is going to survive a second term by Donald Trump. The United States government funds 27% of the UN budget.
Is that more than anyone else?
Oh, by a long Right.
A United Nations without the action of the United States backing it up, it's not going to be effective.
Purpose of Donald Trump is to end the international institutions that somehow level the playing field. It's a movement that is deeply nationalistic. It's America first, America, make America great again, America, America, America. He wants America first.
So does the UN not want him?
Yeah, because I remember her losing on
We are terrified. We're terrified.
So the internal vibe of the UN is like no one wants Trump because of that?
Absolutely nobody wants Trump.
So is the UN just like useless now?
I would say for 95% of issues related to international peace and security, yes.
All right, the person you just watched was Jorge Paoletti. Now, I know what happens with these things, and we have plenty more clips for you. They'll try and say, well, it's just some glorified intern. This person is an associate legal officer in the treaty section, the UN Office of Legal Affairs. According to the UN's own website, let me read this for you. The treaty section contributes to ensuring transparency of the international treaty framework, wider knowledge of the law of treaties, and broader participation in multilateral treaties deposited with the Secretary General. So, intern? Don't think so. They always try to make someone a patsy for the higher-ups. This isn't the last story. This is the opening salvo. Go ahead. Here we have Paoletti telling our journalist, again, you'll see this, you saw some of it in that clip, but reiterating that the UN was terrified of, and this is important, not just Donald Trump, but the MAGA movement. Internationally, you are an enemy.
I work more with the legal counsel, which is the lawyer of the United Nations.
One of the defining features of this MAGA movement is the ultranationalism. No, ultranationalism.
right now, like the market is worse than
It's a movement that is deeply nationalistic. It's America first, America, make America great again, America, America, America. And one of the main enemies are what they call the globalists. I'm the definition of a globalist. I'm not sure the United Nations as an institution is going to survive a second term by Donald Trump.
So does the UN not want him?
Yeah, because I remember her losing on
We are terrified. We're terrified.
So as usual, the why matters. We make all references publicly available. Well, in 2020, let's talk about the international community. Donald Trump threatened to completely withdraw from the World Health Organization. And in 2017, President Trump withdrew the United States from the UN Compact on Immigration. And just to be clear, this compact aimed to set a global immigration standard. So the UN wanted to set the standard for the United States. I don't know if you know this, you're the taxpayer, you foot the bill. So let's move on here. Maybe the UN would be an authoritative governing body, and maybe their fear of Donald Trump and yourself would be justified if, let's say, you and Donald Trump advocated for abuses of human rights, and the UN had a good track record. Well, okay. Here's Paoletti talking about how global institutions can actively punish Donald Trump.
There are many instances of human rights in which skillful lawyers can take cases in case Trump decides to go completely wrong. One instance is the United Nations, but another instance that I think would work even better is the Organization of American States. The thing is, they have a very good human rights tribunal system, and the United States is part of that human rights system. So you can bring cases against the United States to that system.
So what he's saying there is that OAS can actually punish Trump if they don't like his immigration policy. And I say this so you understand there are fail-safes in place in case Donald Trump wins. And for the defeatists out there, I will tell you this. This is one of many in a long line of stories, and this is the least authoritative of the people who have a nice package being presented on them in the coming weeks. They are genuinely concerned that Donald Trump will win. They know it's possible, So you better understand that too. Here is Paoletti saying the quiet part out loud because you've been told that you're a conspiracy theorist. One point in time, we know that YouTube throttled anyone who used the term globalist. But here he is saying that the UN wants one world government.
They create this institution, which is the closest we've ever got to kind of like a world government.
A world government.
A world state.
Like a one world government.
Exactly.
So is globalism one of the goals for the UN?
Absolutely. It's to create a space for also the creation of a consciousness of a species, of a planet, of an identity as a planet. One of the objectives of the UN is to create an identity of a global citizen.
Of a global citizen?
Yes. Of someone who shares an identity, a political identity with everybody on this planet. But it's a threat to the absolute power of the United States.
Why?
because they don't want an institution over the U.S. telling the U.S. what to do.
The United States government funds 27% of the UN budget.
27%?
Yeah.
Is that more than anyone else?
Oh, by a long stretch.
Apologies for the quick correction. The United States actually pays 1/3 of the UN's total budget. Apparently he didn't know that. Also, to be clear, President Trump did cut funding to multiple UN programs, including some that promoted or helped support abortion overseas. Here's the bottom line. The UN is entirely useless without the United States. It may as well be called the "Hey, America, give us more money, please" organization. How do I know that they are useless? Again, here's Paoletti saying it.
So is the UN just useless now?
I would say for 95% of issues related to international peace and security, yes.
95%
Yes.
related to international
It's not
matters?
international peace and security.
International peace and security.
Yes, which is the main goal of this institution.
So it's 95% useless for that.
It's 95% useless.
There is very little power that the United Nations has that is not actually the power of its member states. A United Nations without the action of the United States backing it up, it's not going to be effective. You know, the United Nations does not have its own army. Absolutely.
And we'll make all that footage, of course, available individually on Mug Club. Look, this is what this comes down to. A lot of people think that local politics, they only affect the United States. The United States sets the standard for the rest of the world. We also provide the funding pretty much for the entire free world. This election, what is at stake? Well, listen to these people. What's at stake? It's not just the United States. It's the state of the world. It's your personal freedoms. Donald Trump is a proxy for at least half of this country. It is at least half of this country versus not just a portion of this country, whether it's the radical left, versus international governing bodies who have a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D to ensure that your vote doesn't matter. They want to institute a world government, undercut the United States. They see you, conservative Americans, as the biggest threat to that goal. And they see Donald Trump as the most effective tool, the most effective ambassador of achieving that goal. And what do I mean? Let's define that goal. Protecting American interests. Serving the interests of the American people over the interests of international governing bodies, largely tied to, let's be honest, socialist countries and economies. Why are they so concerned? Because you have Donald Trump as the only president in modern history who pulled out of UN initiatives when they don't serve the United States interests. He threatened to pull out of the World Health Organization, who, by the way, at that time, if you questioned them, you were removed from YouTube and Facebook and most of big tech. Now, I know it's going to happen. The UN and those in media are going to throw Jorge here under the bus. They're going to say that he doesn't represent exactly what the UN wants. He was just speaking out of turn. That's what they do. That's their playbook. I encourage you to do so. UN, Washington Post, Mediaite, please, go for it. Everyone else, this story is now live. Mobile, you can share it. Please do. on X. If it still is available on YouTube, spread it far and wide. None of this is heard or seen without you, and this is only possible because of you, Mug Club, watching right now. We are not funded by a foreign caliphate like some political channels. We don't have 15 live reads per show. It is viewers like you, and we don't say that in the way that PBS does, where they mean federal funding and occasionally a telethon. Every week, I want you to know this, from now to election, from now to November 5th, we are going to be delivering an undercover piece for you. We've been keeping our powder dry. We've been holding a lot of it back. I have a pretty good idea as to how the media is going to respond. We have a pretty good idea as to the target on not only Donald Trump's back, but your back, Mug Club, our back, here. Everything that we have in the pipeline right now, I don't want to say is of great consequence. It's probably the most important work that we've done here potentially ever. And by the time we get to November 5th, if you want to understand the forces that be that have taken up arms against you, hopefully we will remove all doubt. So please do consider showing your support. None of it happens without you. Just click that button if you're watching on Rumble to join, or louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub. This season right now, between now and election, is Mug Club Undercover, Stealing a Nation 2024. This is all the culmination of months of tireless work here from the Mug Club Undercover unit.
And the definition of a globalist.
So you and not want him?
We are terrified.
If you decided to ask Trump, did you know who he was? You know, it's just perverting his message.
Hey, if you like this video, we're probably like-minded and you may enjoy some more content. You could click that video, watch another one, or tune in weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. Because we're the same. You and me. We're kindred spirits.